Congressman Burchett, it is an honor to have you on the program. You are a truth seeker. You are one of the bravest members of Congress, asking questions that you're not allowed to ask and sending letters you're not allowed to send. Here's the letter that you just sent to James Comer demanding Epstein's flight logs be released by the FBI. Have you received a response to this letter?
Well, I talked to Chairman Comer, and he said we're going to get on it. So I said, after I sent the letter, right before I did, I talked to him in the gym. He's a friend of mine. And I said, look, we got it. And he agreed with me. Let's get to the bottom of it. I was ticked off about how Durbin treated my friend, Senator Marsha Blackburn. And I thought, well, Republicans have a majority. Let's take that majority out for a walk and see what happens in the House.
And in your letter, you say, why are we protecting the foremost pederast on planet Earth? He's dead and he's a pedophile. And so we shouldn't be protecting this man.
Correct.
Seems common sense.
Yeah, you'd think that. You would think that, except, of course, we all know the dirty truth. A lot of powerful people. And, you know, the flight logs are one thing, but that little black book and some of those tapes are what the American public need to get a hold of. I suspect most of it's been washed by now anyway, but I'd like to have a shot at it. And I think our Justice Department ought to come out, get their head out of the sand, and it might be a family show. And so, but I think we better, let's just do what's right for a change in Congress.
Maybe get their head out of the sand that exists on the beaches of Little St. James, because that seems to be where many of our government officials' heads were buried, along with maybe a couple of other secrets that might be buried. There's so much footage of our own FBI and our own intelligence agencies raiding Jeffrey Epstein properties. And what happened to all of that information? Why do we have no answers?
Well, I think I know. I think it's because some very powerful and influential people who are seriously compromised by those videos are keeping it from our view. I mean, why not? You know, the lady, his female friend, whatever, Maxwell, whatever her name is, she's locked up. She's not saying anything, of course, because if she does, she'll end up committing suicide by shooting herself in the back of the head 12 times. And then Epstein, he's burning in hell right now. So, you know, who are we protecting? What the heck is going on? What is going on? And, you know, this kind of stuff just stinks to high heaven. His death, you know, he's the most viewed, most talked about prisoner in the world, basically at that time. And then he's on suicide watch. And the way suicide watch is, if you've ever seen it, you've got a guard that literally sits outside of the jail, of the thing, and in a very secure environment. And yet the two people that were supposed to be doing it, somehow they weren't there. And then somehow this camera was miraculously not working. You know, this thing's a clown show. This is like a third world country. And yet the national media just lets it go. And why do they let it go? Obviously, because the people they're figuratively and possibly literally in bed with are involved in this thing. And it stinks. And I don't care what party you're in. I don't care if you're a preacher or an atheist or a Republican or a Democrat or a mugwump, but dadgummit, the American public deserves to know the truth.
Congressman, you represent the state of Tennessee. Marsha Blackburn has been completely blackballed in the Senate for asking for these flight logs to be released and for this client list to be released. It seems like now you are fighting with her in the House. Why the protection mechanism? And more importantly, you mentioned recently in an interview that there may be some members of Congress who are personally compromised by this, and they don't want the truth to get out. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, 100%. You got powerful people and they write the big checks. Well, let's be honest. And powerful people in this country, they write the big checks. And they, you know, they're the ones out on the tarmac when the president comes and visits, and whichever party they're in, they always either out on the tarmac or in the private room. They're the ones that write the big checks. They don't care who's in. They hate this country. They hate what we're about, but they love their portfolios and they love their money more than they do anything else. And they protect it, and they protect the people that do that. And by doing so, you know, the old honeypot, the Russians do that. And I'm sure members of Congress have been caught up. Why in the world would good conservatives vote for crazy stuff like what we've been seeing out of Congress? It's how it works. You're visiting, you're out of the country or out of town, or you're in a motel or bar in DC, and some whatever your you're into, women or men or whatever, comes up and they're very attractive and they're laughing at your jokes and you're buying them a drink. Next thing you know, you're in the motel room with them naked, and next thing you know, you're about to make a key vote, and what happens? Some well-dressed person comes up and whispers in your ear, "Hey man, there's tapes out on you. Were you in a motel room on whatever with whoever?" And then you're like, "Uh-oh," and said, "You really ought not be voting for this thing." I mean, and what do? It's human nature. And, no man or no woman actually is an island, and they know what to get at. If it's women, drugs, booze, it'll find you in DC and in most elected offices. And that's what people of power and influence do. And it's just, I've been in this game my whole life. I spent 16 years in the state legislature in Tennessee and 8 years as county mayor. And now I'm in my 5th year of Congress. But it's just, the stakes are higher, but the game is still the same.
Congressman, what you've just described here is going to be shocking. I mean, I suppose people have watched Hollywood movies, right, where there's blackmail associated with it, but they've never heard from an elected representative and somebody with such a prestigious elected history as you have. I mean, you've been doing this, as you just described, for 3 decades. Describe it in such terms. Have you actually witnessed this happen, this blackmail mechanism? And who are the people doing the blackmails? Is it the intelligence agencies? Is it donors or special interests?
I think it's all of the above. It's how you own somebody. And let me tell you the other way they do it. They say you're an influential person in leadership or whatever, and your wife happens to get a job with one of these so-called consulting firms, or with a missile defense company, or is hired by the state party in your home state. And then maybe your wife and your girlfriend have jobs. I mean, this is, and it's not so much now with the sex as it used to be, but then they still use that. But currently the way they do it is they just own you by giving them a job. And then you're afraid you're going to lose your spouse and or your girlfriend's job by the way you vote. And that's the current way they own you. And I guess technically it's legal. It's unethical as hell. But it's the way it's done. And they get their hooks into you. It's like the Chinese. They have an open policy now. You're seeing this, really, you saw it with Hunter Biden. I mean, they have a policy, basically, I forget what they call it, but they go towards high-ranking people in the media, officials, high-ranking officials. They send their agents out or what have you to get involved with their family member, and then they lure them into these things, and then eventually they just own them, and it's constant. Why else would people vote for some of the garbage that comes out of Washington on both sides of the aisle? I mean, you see good conservatives, you think, they're getting ready to leave office, and then they vote on some crazy thing, or the left, they vote for something else that obviously is diametrically opposed to what they believe in. They do it because these folks own them, and it's just it's a crooked game, and America needs to wake up.
I mean, I guess it does. I believe that, like, patriots and Republicans aren't quite prepared to accept the depravity and the true, like, banal and evil, the blackness with which has taken over our federal government. But as they listen to you speak here and talk about the blackmail that's occurring in Congress, it's not even science fiction, because we saw it all happen with Eric Swalwell. You just mentioned Chinese spies sleeping with members of Congress and then placing interns in his staff. This is precisely what happened with Fang Fang. I mean, this is a real thing that happened and has been reported.
Yeah, I had a former attorney general. I had breakfast with him. I don't know, maybe a year ago, and he told me how they get down to they start with the city. They have so many out there. They get down to like the city council level, and that's where they get them. And then they invest so much in some of these people, and then they promote them, and then they might hit a home run and get one of them in Congress, or maybe one of them in the White House. I mean, it's the perfect Manchurian candidate. And, it's not a conspiracy thing. These people are evil, and they want to control the world. And they do. I mean, they get away with murder. They've gotten away with child molestation, obviously. This guy how in the world, if you have a list of people that were his clients, how in the world are these people not been arrested or arraigned or brought in public charges? Why has this been kept quiet? And these poor girls that were brought into this thing, I mean, God bless them, and they're going to be run through the ringer again. That's why a lot of them don't want their names brought up, because they know they've already been whispered in their ear by some millionaire or whoever, influential person. And you're talking millions of dollars. I mean, some of these guys have made millions of dollars since you and I've started talking just now. I mean, these multi-billionaires, $1 million to them is nothing. And so, they can shut somebody up or own somebody. And again, you better wake up. You better start looking at financial disclosures and what stocks congressmen and senators own, and it's public record. And we better start catching up, because I tell you, in the church, we say the devil, but the uniparty runs this town, not this town, Knoxville, Tennessee, but Washington, D.C. And it's a reality. There's just no other. What was that crazy TV show, that series? I think Kevin Spacey was the
House of Cards.
House of Cards. That ought to be a documentary. Outside of except they passed an education bill in 6 weeks. That's not going to happen in Washington. That part was false. But the rest of it, I mean, it should have been on the National Geographic channel. And you're talking billions and billions of dollars, not trillions of dollars in a lot of these spending packages. And to think that they wouldn't ruin somebody's life or try to own somebody because of it, that's just ridiculous.
So you're saying that right now, currently ongoing in our Congress, there are members of Congress who have been compromised by either special interests or the intelligence community to not give the American public information on Jeffrey Epstein?
I believe so. 100%. 100%. I want to tell you one quick thing. I know it's a little different, but I've been involved in the UFO UAP issue. And it's, like I said, I'm not going to bring out little green men in a flying saucer, but it's about transparency. I had an amendment on the FAA reauthorization bill that said if an American pilot sees a UAP, an anomaly or something, and they make a report to the FAA, that report has to be made available to Congress. I was told by the whip, I said, what happened to my amendment? And he said, it was killed by the intelligence community. And I said, you mean the intelligence committee? And he said, no, the intelligence community. It was not even brought up. And these are unelected bureaucrats that have that much control. And so, we got to start electing people with guts in both parties. This pandering stuff that's going on now, it's just a distraction.
So many have speculated that Jeffrey Epstein was an intelligence asset himself, and that this is a cleanup job on an intelligence asset in a leverage operation where Jeffrey Epstein would go get some of the most famous and powerful people in the world. We have the photos of Bill Clinton and the photos of Bill Gates we can pop up, the royal family and American senators and members of Congress. He would get them in compromising positions, just as you were describing, and then you would have you would own these people. Do you agree with that assessment? Do you think that's the most likely understanding of who Jeffrey Epstein is and why he had so much money? Because no one's ever been able to explain that.
I think he was probably a free agent. There's rumors that he was Mossad. I think he's a free agent in the fact that he could go to certain groups and say, hey, I've got this guy, and what will you give me to keep him under wraps or her under wraps or whatever? I think the guy had that much money. I think he was a little bigger than that, than just put him in the little thing of Mossad.
So he was a free agent, and he had compromising information on the most powerful people and families and positions on earth, and he would then sell that leverage.
Yeah, I think he probably learned his craft from Mossad, like a lot of these guys from their agency, CIA or whoever. But that's where it ends up. Yeah, and he capitalized on it in a big way.
And then he found out in a big way, and then he was killed. Was he killed because he just over-leveraged?
Knew too much. He wasn't useful to him behind bars.
Yeah, that's right. And so I suppose if you are looking for the people with the real power in this nation, it's the people who can kill you in federal penitentiary and turn off the cameras, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can kill somebody in a penitentiary for a pack of smokes, or they don't allow cigarettes. Honey buns is what they trade currency now. But yeah, You know, you can kill somebody. People get killed for $5 rock of crack cocaine and a quart bottle of beer. And, you know, life is cheap. But, you know, you wave $50,000 under somebody's nose and they're gone. I'd say in one of those situations.
Right.
You know, a bag of weed, you know, $100 bag of weed turns into $1,000 inside of a penitentiary.
Right. But the cameras don't get flipped off, right? Like at least you see the drug deal.
How does that happen?
And then you're in solitary confinement, no one in or out. So how does that happen? Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Herman Goering killed himself, you know, at the Nuremberg trials. So, you know, they're still not really sure how that went about. And, you know, it's just nobody is able to, you know, escape death. Somebody can figure it out. And if my dad used to say, he's an old World War II Marine, he said, if some guy's willing to lose his life to take yours, there's not a whole hell of a lot you can do.
So here's the former president of the United States, the man who knows a lot of secrets, as presidents tend to, in the capture of Jeffrey Epstein, 26 times on the Lolita Express, going down to that island. No doubt, just pure probability, Jeffrey Epstein had an enormous treasure trove of information on Bill Clinton. In fact, had an oil painting of Bill Clinton in a blue dress, in Monica Lewinsky's DNA-soaked dress, sitting in his apartment. Super creepy. Do you think that Jeffrey Epstein was killed because our intelligence agencies were upset that this all happened? Were angry that somebody was able to get one over on Bill Clinton and needed revenge?
I don't know if it's our intelligence agencies or not, but somebody of power, you know, it's always, there's always a diversion in these things. You know, you always look at A and it's always A plus 3. Somebody further down that list and they would push out Clinton, because Clinton's he's just a boob. He really is. I mean, he's a smart, likable guy with a huge head, but his wife was the muscle and the brains behind the operation. And so I suspect that he sighed of relief, and she did too, for whatever deal they've cut with the devil. But I just suspected that it could have been a combination of a couple of those people that were involved, and they all know they're on the list, and they've all hung out together since then, a few of them. And so I suspect it was planned by that. But yeah. I suspect it's somebody we don't know.
You suspect this was planned by the Clintons?
I don't know if they planned it or not, but they're not good people. They're not. They are too. Yeah. When I first got to Congress, you'd hear people whisper things. Democrats, you know, I'm in the gym, and there's that lovely oil painting, and it was just creepy in all kinds of directions. But you would hear people whisper things about Bill and Hillary. And now they just openly talk about it. They laugh about it, about people that have met their demise, that have been close to them. And then, you know, it's just a laughed and talked about fact, but nobody's going to do anything again, because the big boys protect their own, and he took care of them.
Wow. So members of Congress who know make jokes about the Clintons disappearing people?
100%. Democrats.
Wow.
Republicans always did, but to hear Democrats talk about it, to me, it's kind of the gloves are off kind of thing.
It is remarkable what happens when people just talk in public. This is John McCain's wife. John McCain, of course, runs for president a couple times. Inarguably, in his lifetime, one of the most powerful Republicans to serve in Congress. And his wife said this about Jeffrey Epstein. I'd love to get your reaction to it.
It hides in plain sight. Epstein was hiding in plain sight. We all knew about him. We all knew what he was doing. But we had no one that was, legal aspect that would go after him. They were afraid of him. For whatever reason, they were afraid of him.
So everyone knew what Epstein was doing? Is that square? She's one of the most powerful. She's married to one of the most powerful men in politics, and she says everyone knew what Epstein was doing and nobody did anything.
Yeah, I wasn't there when I didn't know anything about him until I saw it on the news. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. And why isn't that the leading clip when they talk about Epstein every night? Because they're protecting their folks, and that's exactly what they're doing. And It's obvious, and why the heck didn't they have the guts to come out and why didn't they publicly go to the Justice Department, write a letter to the Justice Department as I did and put them on record? You can whisper it to them or you can kind of slide something over to them. But when you make a letter public like I did, that's what needs to be done, because the American public needs to be talking about it, and they ought to get mad and they ought to get to the polls and start flexing their muscle.
So in conclusion here, I want to kind of put a pin in this. What happens when we see the actual, you said that James Comer is going to follow through. Now we have a story about 170 different Jeffrey Epstein high-profile associates will be named in court documents set to be unsealed in the first day of 2024. So it sounds like we will be getting names of his associates, of the people who he was trafficking to. You will be getting names. What happens next? Do you refer them for criminal prosecution? What happens, Congressman?
Well, dead men tell no tales, and I suspect that list will be culled, and there'll be names left off that list. I'm not so much worried about the flight list. I want the black book that was allegedly taken, I think, out of the apartment, I think in New York, I believe it was. That's what we need. That's what needs to be made public. And will it? I doubt it. I doubt we'll ever know. It'll be just like another one of these American deals, because we were asleep at the switch and decided not to go vote on election day, and we let the criminals are running the jail right now, and that's who's running Washington. If you saw Dick Durbin in that interview where that lady was asking going down the hall, and he acted like he'd never heard of Epstein, and just, what are you talking about? And it's just disgusting, but it's just more of the same. I think America is we're so used to this kind of filthy behavior. It's just kind of what else kind of thing, but we need to be that bright, shining city on the hill. We need to set an example for the rest of the world. We need to start prosecuting these criminals, and I don't care who they are. We need to throw the book at them, and we need to just literally get out of bed with these people, because they are disgusting.
Yeah, they are disgusting. Final clip I'll play for you here, Congressman, is this clip we can't get over. Bill Gates, who lost his marriage because of Jeffrey Epstein. His wife divorced him due to his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, if you can call it a friendship, whatever it was. Bill Gates was asked about Epstein's death, and his response is so unbelievably telling. It makes your skin crawl. I want to get your reaction to it.
And, I've said I regretted having those dinners, and there's absolutely nothing new on that.
Is there a lesson for you, for anyone else looking at this?
Well, he's dead. So, in general, you always have to be careful.
Is that the lesson to America's children? Well,
yeah,
if you cross us, you'll die.
Yeah, be careful or you'll be dead. That's the lesson. He got caught. He's not sorry. He's making excuses. He's a dirtbag. And here's the thing. I'm a Christian. I'm not a very good one, but the Bible's pretty clear about these people. They might. They're coming after me in this next election, and I know it. It's they got the dark money, and they're going to run it through, and they'll wash it a few times, and they'll come after me. They might beat me. They might not. But eventually they're going to face their maker, and that's where judgment will occur. They can live the life here on this earth, and rape children, and they can burn in hell for eternity for it. And I hope they do that very soon.
Yeah. Christ says it'd be better for you to have a big rock tied around your neck and chucked in the ocean than to harm a hair on these kids.
That was exactly the verse I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but eventually their day will come.
If Bill Gates is on that list, you going to refer him for criminal prosecution?
100%.
Well, Godspeed, Congressman. Thank you for your brave pursuit of truth here. It does boggle the mind. Why would we protect a dead pedophile?
Yeah, I tell you who's brave in this world. That 48 star flag behind my desk, that was on my uncle's casket. He died fighting the Nazis. This is my mama, her brother. She flew an airplane during the Second World War. I don't know if you can see that or not. Anyway.
We sure can.
Yeah.
She flew an airplane. Wow.
Yeah, she flew an airplane while my dad was all fighting the Japanese, and none of them had to go. None of them had to do their service, and they all did. And Daddy was on Peleliu and Okinawa and went to China after the Second World War and fought the communists. Then he went to the University of Tennessee and fought the communists over there for 40 years. So, but
They're the ones who built this country, and these people, they don't have a right to destroy it. Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Gates, the Clintons, they don't have a right to destroy something they didn't build. And
they do not.
We should say that more often. Yes.
Thank you, brother. And thank you for putting out the truth, man. I swear. I hope you don't. And I want everybody to know I'm not suicidal. I don't have depression. And I wear a helmet when I ride one of my motorcycles. So.
Okay. Yeah. I also would not shoot myself 15 times in the back of the head.
And don't come on my property on my farm without asking unless you want to leave in a body bag.
God bless you. God bless you, Congressman. We'd have a different country if there were 500 of you in office, and we thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Have a very politically incorrect Merry Christmas, brother.
Merry Christmas.